Welcome back, Seb here. So today's video was supposed to be about installing the new sway bar. So I received Baja Ron sway bar last week, but I was out of town, for about a week or so, and I really didn't get a chance to actually unbox it, and so I did today. And here's what came in the box. These two billets here are the the billets, the dog bone, whatever you want to call it. The actual sway bar itself, it feels a lot more thicker and more robust than the one that's currently on the Can-Am. I've already observed the one on the Can-Am. And in this plastic bag, we have two bushings. So yeah, we have two bushings and two bolts, and about 8 what appears to be washers. So that all came in the package. Nice touch, in addition to have this pen also that came in the package. And so yeah, today was the day for me to install this thing, but I ran into a bit of an issue, so let me show you what it is that I ran into. So out here in the garage, I did a mistake when I selected this jack here. So at a minimum, to be able to replace the sway bar, you need at least 22 to 24 inches lift from the ground. So the Can-Am needs to be lifted up about 24 inches. So as I was saying, I think the video got cut off. At a minimum, to be able to remove the sway bar, you need at least 24-inch lift, clearance, from the ground to the bottom of the Can-Am where the sway bar is attached. As you can see right there, this is the left-hand side of the sway bar, and so I don't have that at the moment. I think I have about 19 or 20 lift. So if I attempt to remove the sway bar, I don't have enough ground clearance to be able to get it done. The jack only lifts the Can-Am up about 16 and a half inches, maybe. I think 15.8 or 16 inches, I think is what, if I remember correctly. So that's not enough clearance. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to be able to get the amount of clearance that is required so that I could remove and replace the sway bar. But while I'm on here, it's pretty simple from what I can see so far. There are 3 panels that needs to be removed. This first panel here on the left side, underneath the left front of the Can-Am, is held together by 3 push pins. 1 push pin here towards the front, the outside front. The inside of the this panel is held together by 2 push pins, 1 here and 1 over here. And of course, there's a Torque 30 on the outside. The same 4 combination of push pins and the Torque holds the other panel on the right side that needs to be removed to gain access to the sway bar location. In addition to these 2 panels in the front, there is also a panel on the left side, a plastic panel that is held together by 4 push pins that needs to be removed also in order to be able to get at the sway bar to remove it. But I can't get to the removal and the replacement, like I said, until I could figure out a way how to lift this Can-Am up to the 24-inch minimum. I have an idea already, but it's going to cost me $790. There's another lift that I saw, but I'm not willing to go spend that kind of money right now, so I'll need to figure out a creative way to get this thing done, because the next thing I want to do is install the exhaust, and I don't have any money allocated to buy some kind of other mechanism to lift this bike up. So now let me think of some creative way to try to figure out how to get this thing lifted so I can replace this sway bar. Okay, so I removed the two panels up front and the third panel on the left side. And like I said, it is quite simple to remove those panels. Now, I have not reconciled the challenge yet of lifting this thing high enough off the ground, but so here are the panels. Like I said, they were held together by 3 push pins and 1 Torque 30 for the 2 front panels, and the side panel was held together by 5 push pins. So those things are done. Then the next step is to actually remove the sway bar. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through the process of bolting the sway bar. Now, if you notice, the factory sway bar comes with this billet right here. It's plastic, right? See, the one that comes with the new Baja Ron sway bar is aluminum, and so it's going to be much more robust. And as you can see already, how thin the factory sway bar is in comparison to the actual new Baja Ron. Actually, when I removed the factory sway bar, I'll put them side by side so you could actually see the difference in the in the quality. But yeah, this billet right here, or this dog bone, or whatever you want to call it, is plastic. The new one is aluminum. So you can see already, just in the quality of the billet that attached the sway bar to the chassis, or to the chassis, it's already a better quality, the Baja Ron. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove all of the connection pieces that keeps the sway bar in place, and then hopefully the clearance is high. I know it's not 24 inches, but I'm hoping that somehow I can get this thing off and replace it. So let's see what happens. Okay, so don't do this at home. Don't try this at home. This is just my little bit of creativity. So to get the additional inch that I need, this is what I did. I had the Can-Am sitting on my 2 front stand, those 5-6-ton stands. So what I did was, I used a 2-inch 2x4 in between the top of the jack and the frame of the Can-Am to get that additional inch or 2 that I needed to lift it high enough so I could remove the sway bar. Now, this is not something that I would recommend anyone do because it's not safe. And here I am, the Can-Am is up high enough to where now I should be able to come over here and remove the sway bar. There we go. So the sway bar is removed. Wow, creative ingenuity. Let's keep going. Okay, so I have the sway bar removed, and this is the stock sway bar. So as you notice, the dog bone here is plastic. Nothing special about that. These were held to the sway bar, the end of the sway bar, with 13mm bolts on the bottom here, and also at the top here. The bushing came next, and there's some 10mm bolts that held the bushing in place, and this is how the bushing looks. It's hard plastic also. And then this bolt right here was immediately to the inside of the bushing, also a 10mm bolt. That would be the left side of the Can-Am. The right side, the same thing, 10mm bolts on the inside of the bushing. 10mm bolt here holds the bushing in place. And then of course the dog bone piece that attached to the end of the sway bar are held in place by 13mm bolts. Now, this is the sway bar that was removed, and this is the new sway bar that I will be replacing it with. Oops, sorry for the noise. feel difference already. The Baja Ron sway bar is much more solid. It's more dense. It's heavier than the sway bar that came off the stock factory sway bar. Um, so there's a little bit more density, more quality, more firmness, more stiffness in this performance sway bar. In addition to that, the dog bone is aluminum, which is much better than the plastic that came with the factory sway bar. And and of course um, the bushing. This is how this bushing looks, and this hole here is where the 10mm bolts will be threaded through to attach this bushing in place once I get it onto the can-am, and of course the washers. So I will link an installation video. There's a much better one out there on the internet for how to do this. But I'm going to go ahead and install now the new sway bar. The can-am is still lifted in that unsafe way. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in so I could lower it back down to a safe level and continue with the rest of this installation. And then I'll wrap up the video with going for a ride. Actually wrap up the video with showing you that it's back in place. Everything is tightened down. Go for a ride and then see if I can feel much of a difference in the new sway bar. All right, so the new sway bar is in place. Everything is tightened down on both sides. Yep, new sway bar is in place. Everything is tightened down and torqued down to specs as far as the sway bar is concerned. What's left for me to do is to replace the plastic bits that I removed from underneath the car. I'm sorry, underneath the Can-Am, the car, underneath the Can-Am, and go test out the new sway bar and see what happened. I mean, how it feels, and compare it to the ride I had before changing the sway bar. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these bits back together. I'm excited to test to see how this thing is gonna feel. It was a journey, not necessarily in futility. I ran into some issue in terms of not being high enough, but I figured out a way how to get it done. So wherever there's a will, there's a way. So let me go ahead and put these bits back together and test this thing out and see how it is. All right, so here we have the moment of truth. I've installed successfully the new Baja Ron performance sway bar onto my Can-Am Spyder RT Limited 2020 model. The installation, it was a bit of a chronicle, well, the chronicles of the installation of a Baja Ron sway bar. So the jack that I have, and I'm going to just summarize some of the things. The jack that I used could only lift the Can-Am up to about 16 inches maybe at a maximum. To be able to install the Baja Ron sway bar, you need a minimum of 22, between 22 and 24 inches. I think 24 inches. The Can-Am has to have a clearance of at least that much, because once you loosen the bolts that holds the sway bar in place, when you remove it, then you need enough clearance for it to dip down, because it curves at the ends, so you could pull it off and have enough room to install the new sway bar. So what happened with lifting the Can-Am as high as I did, or as high as I could, I was still lacking the necessary clearance. And so that's why I say it's chronicles of trying to install the sway bar. Under normal circumstances where your Can-Am is high enough, the sway bar takes nothing, no time. Once I was able to, to determine exactly what needed to be removed, it was phenomenal. There was only a few, three plastic panels underneath the front of the Can-Am, two on the front and one on the left side. The sway bar was held together by plastic billets with 13mm bolts, and the bushing was held together. I mean, the bushing was threaded through with 10mm bolts. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 8 different bolt combination that needs to be removed to get access to the sway bar, 10 millimeters and 13 millimeter respectively. What else? Yes, and installation is pretty simple. It's a little bit tricky to try to get the washers in. I'm going to reference a video, an installation video, so that you guys can see exactly how it's done on an RT Limited 2020. They also have another video on how it's done in a 2014 Spyder as well. And the video I'm going to link is from Pierre, from the place where I purchased the sway bar to begin with. Anyway, as far as the ride, straight away, and excuse me if I ran any stop signs or didn't come to a complete stop in any of these. But anyway, right away I could tell a difference in the way the bike handled. It's much stiffer in terms of the steering input, and it's more precise. When I say stiffer, I don't get me wrong. Stiffer in this case means good. Before the change of the sway bar, I love my RT. I love my RT Limited, right? It drives nicely, it feels good, it's smooth. But there's a little bit of floatiness in the steering wheel when you're going around corners and some of the twisted bits and so forth and on the highway. With this sway bar, I feel a little bit more sure-footed. I feel a little bit more planted, especially in the corners. Now, I'm not driving excessively fast and through a lot of twisty bits, backcountry roads or anything like that. But the immediate impression is that this thing will give me a lot more enjoyment from my RT Limited. Is it worth the money to me? Yes, I think it is from my initial impression. I'm only just riding around the neighborhood, but it feels good, it feels solid. And it makes sense that if you're coming off a highway, you know, and you're coming on one of those curved ramps, a lot of times with a floaty front end, you have to do a lot of different steering inputs to stay as precise as you can as you come off. With this right here, the feel is amazing. And I think it will be much easier to be more precise with your steering input. You know what I mean? And so if you're riding two up, I think the firmness of the front end will give the driver a little bit more confidence with having additional weight, you know, on the bike to be able to navigate corners and things like that. Feel more secure that you're not going to have to do too much correction in your steering input, which will, you know, may affect the ride for your passenger. But anyway, the Baja Ron performance sway bar was definitely a good buy. Again, the installation video, I'll link a proper installation video. Like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in. Sebastian.